The USC Trojans travel to Boulder. They travel to Folsom Field, and they squeak out a 48-41 dub. Partly thanks to some of the worst clock management that you and I have ever seen by Colorado, forcing themselves to rely on an onside kick that is honestly one of the worst onside kick attempts I've seen in my last few years of watching college football. We know how low risk it is that you hit that anyway, and it was a piss poor attempt. But again, this game, 48-41 Trojans. I kind of feel vindicated in saying that we know what USC is. They are who we thought they are. Top deal. Only winning this game by 7, leading 34-14 at half, but letting this be a touchdown game in the end against a team that you just are so much more talented than. And obviously your offense showed that, but your defense is still it's not even touching the playoff contention. Or if it is, it's the same defense that we saw Lincoln Riley have in the playoff in 2017 and times like that.
USC does not run fit well. They don't tackle well. They don't tackle on the open field. The philosophy is simply, we're just going to outscore you.
Yep.
And all of those things showed because you allowed Colorado basically to come storming back. But the number that jumps off to me is Caleb Williams, 30 for 40, 400 yards, 403 yards, 6 touchdowns and a pick. 30 for 40. I don't 40 attempts. And you're going to complete 30 of those? Dude, I don't care if you're playing Arkansas Pine Bluff. That's impressive to me.
Yeah, and it is. And he threw his first pick like I speculated that he might, but that is impressive. 403 yards. The thing that I don't get, because, again, we just highlighted that it was 34-14 at half, and your team totaled 25 rush attempts. I think you flip those rush attempts and those pass attempts, and then you probably win that game by 21 because you were dang close to doing that at half. And then you just kept giving Colorado more life. This was not the primary game that I had eyes on in this time slot for whatever reason. But, I just don't understand. I don't understand Lincoln Riley is what I'm going to say, because it's the same old issues, the same old, I'll say, unconcern of playing defense and how impactful and important that is. Mm-hmm. If you ever want to sniff a national championship, this just will not cut it.
No, it's not going to cut that at all. This has been his MO forever, though. Score a ton of points, give up a ton of points. It's just what they're going to do. Yeah. I do think it's funny that Marshawn Lloyd had a really good night, and all the Gamecock fans are just watching him run this way, that way, backyard football, this way, that way. And, they obviously struggled in Neyland on Saturday night. But considering Deion Sanders for a minute, he's now 3-2. He's now 3-2. They had a ton of momentum before the Oregon game where they got tallywhacked. Matter of fact, I even went on record and said, hey, Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, these guys can very much lead Colorado to a potential 10-plus win season. Well, in order for that to happen, you now have to win out. And I don't believe it's going to get easier for them at Arizona State, hosting Stanford, at UCLA, hosting a really, really good Oregon State, hosting Arizona, at Washington State, a top 15 Washington State, and then at Utah. The only reason that I even want to say this is the only reason I'm glad that Colorado has kind of come back down to earth is just so the media would get out of their butt cheeks. That's really all it was. Like, I'm rooting for Deion, man. I want him to be successful. I like him. Yeah. He's basically like the Donald Trump of politics. He doesn't look like all the other guys. He doesn't talk like all the other coaches. He's going to be him. So I appreciate that. But I don't know. How do you see Colorado basically unfolding for the rest of the season? And what do you make of them up to this point?
Well, I think they're certainly to this point, they've done more than we thought to this point. And there's no denying that because of at TCU. Beating Nebraska, I think in different moments, I probably waffled on that. Anytime after week 1, I certainly expected Colorado to win that game, and they did in the end. They looked so odd, and they played down to Colorado State kind of, or they just don't have the guys to really run away from a Colorado State like you expect they would.
Mm-hmm.
But then they hang with USC, partially in part to USC and the issues that we're highlighting here. But yeah, I mean, you're gonna if you win at Arizona State, to me that's pretty impressive because you're just not a complete team. You are still missing so many parts. They certainly could go down there and win that game because Arizona State is in a pretty deep pickle jar of their own. But then you host Stanford, and you're getting right against Stanford. There's no chance Stanford hangs with Colorado in my eyes at this moment. Unless it's an overlooked situation or a Colorado State 2.0, something like that.
Sure.
And then it just gets really tough because you're going to UCLA, and while you might go blow for blow with them on the scoreboard, I think you're going to have a tough time doing that for 60 minutes plus if it goes in overtime, something like that. I mean, Chip Kelly is as sound as they come offensively, still in my opinion.
For sure.
Things that he's done at UCLA are more than I thought he could.
For sure.
I don't see you beating Oregon State because I think they're going to look at this game like Oregon looked at that game. Let's say Colorado gets on the right track for the next two games leading into it, that they win those games, which I don't think they will. Oregon State's going to look at it. We're going to go put a stop to that because you see what they did against Utah. Even having a loss to this point of their own against Washington State, they're just not going to have it. They're not going to go in there and celebrate Colorado being an upstart program back on the right track. They're not going to do that. DJ Uiagalelei is still looking to do as much as he can in the sport, maximize the few games that he has left in the sport. It's just not going to – I'm afraid that game's not going to go well. You're probably okay against Arizona, and then you get Washington State, Utah to close out the regular season. Losses, my friend. I'm sorry. That's losses.
Yeah. What a roller coaster Colorado has been thus far. What a roller coaster. But you know what? The people who listen to Pandemonium Reigns love when we talk about Colorado. I don't know what it is. But you mentioned Colorado's win over TCU. We would be making a mistake if we didn't mention that West Virginia also just beat them. West Virginia, struggle bus, that was them going into this season. Neil Brown fighting for his dang job. He also beat TCU. So that Colorado win over TCU ain't looking so special anymore.
Yeah, completely agree.
Colorado has come back down to earth fast. And as we end this segment, I want to say this, talking about for Southern Cal just for a minute. Southern Cal can score a lot of points, but they're just not a playoff team.
No,
they are a one side, but I'm afraid you run into oh my gosh, almost anybody who can put up points well, like an Oregon. That should be fantastic. Oregon, Southern Cal, that should be a lot of points scored in that one. I mean, truth be told, or a Washington, good Lord, even in their own conference, I'm going to take Oregon or Washington out of the Pac-12 for the playoff before I'm taking Southern Cal.
100%. It gets real for USC again in 2 weeks' time when they travel to Notre Dame. And again, you might score 100 points, but you also might give up 110 because that physical ground game that Notre Dame brings, that veteran flashy presence that Hartman can bring. I mean, it's going to go blow for blow at best for USC, and they might get dominated. I'm telling you right now, they might get dominated. Right after that game, they've got Utah. I mean, they've got some losses coming, is what I'm here to tell you.
Yeah.
Utah doesn't look quite like Utah, but they've got some losses coming. I just don't see any way around it. I would be absolutely shocked and mesmerized if they made a 12-0 regular season out of this because they just look like, again, who I thought they were.
Man, I was going to set you up for that. I was going to softball pitch that to you. Southern Cal, we said it just before we hit the record button. They are who we thought they were.
Yeah.
Man, we have nailed that one. Well, we both picked Southern Cal to win that game. I do hope that Colorado can right that ship and find a bowl game this year. And I think that would be a massive success. I do think they've exceeded some expectations going into this year, obviously. And here's to hoping Travis Hunter gets healthy soon. But nonetheless, man, Southern Cal, 48-41. They let the Buffaloes come back, but they still are who we thought they were.